Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for High Velocity Radio.
Welcome to the High Velocity Radio Show, where we celebrate top performers producing better results in less time. Stone Payton here with you this afternoon. Please join me in welcoming to the broadcast with Lauren Bayne, Distinctive Personal Branding. Lauren Bayne, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Well, it is absolutely my pleasure. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Lauren, I've got a ton of questions. We probably won't get to them all, but I think a great place to start would be if you could share with me and our listeners mission, purpose. What is it you and your team are really out there trying to do for folks?
Well, thank you. I'm an award-winning creative director that spent the last 25 years in the traditional branding and advertising space, working on Fortune 500 companies all the way down to local startups. And I recently became very fascinated by the world of personal branding. And folks, just like the founders of businesses I used to work on with the dream to make an impact in the world through their entrepreneurial product or service, these are humans just like you and I wanting to make impact with the expertise that we've garnered over years of working in different industries and now have basically a service that we can give back to help make an impact on other people and transform them in some way or another. And so what I say is that I turn experts into icons through distinctive personal branding. And so what I feel like I'm doing now is carving out a niche for myself that once you've developed kind of your who, your strategic positioning and what you want to do with your expertise. And as a quote from Larry Wingate, one of my mentors always talks about is he has this beautiful quote that says, find your uniqueness and exploit it in service of others. And so I really, really love that. And there are personal brand strategy firms that can help you find that uniqueness and put all that together. And then when it's time to go to market, I'm your girl to help turn you into a distinctive personal brand that sets you apart from the herd.
What was taking that leap, like that transition from the larger corporate environment to going out on your own? Was there anything scary about it or surprising, or was it pretty smooth?
Oh, we don't have enough time for me to take you through the last 25 years, but scary, yes, but I love a challenge. I think, I went the traditional route of going to college. I went to the University of Texas in Austin. I got my degree in advertising. I started my internship at the first agency that hired me on after I completed college. My internship there, they hired me on. I was doing corporate advertising, winning awards, making commercials and big campaigns for AT&T and Chili's and Southwest Airlines. And all of a sudden, at about 26 years old, I kind of checked all the boxes and I really was having like a quarter life crisis. It's crazy to think about, but I was reading a book called Quarter Life Crisis. And at the same time, Entrepreneur Magazine had just come to our office and it was a free thing that we could have as employees. And I just didn't know much about the space or the industry of entrepreneurialism. And it made a bunch of sense that my whole life, what I was always drawn to were people doing really cool things and selling really cool things. And I wanted to help them get that out to the world through my skill set and my gift of uniquely advertising them. And so what ended up happening was I wanted to be an entrepreneur to explore that world. So I started my own businesses. And then the next 25 years from there was like starting a business, then becoming a mom and going through the ups and downs of that, then going back to an agency, then starting another business, and then starting a blog, then going back to the agency. And so I got to see almost every single aspect of a brand because of the unique places I had the privilege of being able to explore throughout my career. And so, yes, it's a long way to answer your question. Was it scary? Absolutely. But I've never been scared off by fear, I guess. I've just seen it as exhilarating. I love change. I love the launch, which is why what I'm doing now is so fun because I've really just developed a service and a product that helps these experts launch their brand into the world and get them out there. And then they go forth, And so I've never been great in like a maintenance mode type of job. And so that's why entrepreneurialism is so exciting because there's always something new you've got to figure out and something on the horizon that you hadn't thought about. So, I've been blessed that I've been able to explore it all, but I really feel like now taking this pivot at 48 years old, just tell your audience too, you're never too old. You can always start something new. This is starting over basically with this new offering and this new service and this new audience. So scary, but also exciting.
Well, we can certainly hear the enthusiasm and passion for the work in your voice. What are you finding these days the most rewarding? What's the most fun about it for you at this point?
Every single one of my clients' stories. It's like, and I do have a podcast coming out in 2025, but it is basically, I get to sit with these dreamers. I get to sit with these people that are so excited about what they have to offer, about the gifts that they want to package up and turn essentially into a business. I mean, I call it like the direct to audience business now. We can basically be a walking, talking entrepreneur with the services we already embody. And sometimes you just need help with teaming up with the right people so that they can put that together for you. Because a lot of these people aren't entrepreneurs. They come from corporate settings, or maybe they never had to work a corporate job, but they're at a stage of life where they've garnered a bunch of expertise and they want to share it with others, but they don't really know how to package that up like a business. So it's this kind of perfect harmony of both of my worlds of creative advertising and branding, plus the entrepreneurialism world and all the founders I worked with over my career, to combine it to help people to get out there. So yeah, did I answer your question?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's dive into the work a little bit. You talk about the unicorn factor. Help us understand what you mean by that and kind of walk us through, if you would, what it looks like to work with you, especially in the early stages.
Okay, so unicorn is my personal brand. I love iconography. I suggested, even if you're a product or service and a personal brand, having some kind of visual sticky, like the Nike swoosh for you. What is that for you? And what is it conceptually, so that it actually ties back to the transformation or the promise that you're giving to your audience, so that you can be remembered for that. And so for me, a unicorn has always just mythically been known as some magical creature that may or may not exist, but it exists as far as in the storytelling realm of sticking out and being different and not being seen very often, kind of like a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. And so what I felt like that represented was that little spark inside each of us. And to answer your earlier question, the thing that gets me so excited about these stories is that when I sit down with each of my clients to hear their origin story, to figure out where they came from, to get that long corporate work story that meets the point in their life that caused them to go in a different direction, some of that pain and stuff they went through in life. And then that becomes a service offering that they want to give back to people, or a message that they want to deliver to people. I uncover what I call that unicorn factor. Another ways to say it is like your unique selling proposition. That's the more corporate branding way of saying it, your USP. So, I should call it the unicorn selling proposition.
There you go. You're welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, so working with me, I start, like I mentioned earlier, there's a wonderful brand strategy firm that I learned from, and I cut my teeth on with them, who will start at the beginning to strategize and really figure that out for you if you're in the early stages of trying to figure out how to turn your reputation into revenue. And so they do that really well. And so what I do is either take that, if you've been able to work with them, and come over to me, or we can work on some strategy as well. And I come at it from a different lens of more of the branding and advertising business entrepreneurial lens of packaging you up and figuring out what that unique thing is and what that one thing you can be known for is. And then we take that into visual and verbal expression. And so how that comes to life for me through my creative mind. And then I work with my design team to bring that to life uniquely so that not one brand looks like another. And I say a lot that you are not a template. And I get a little bunchy about templates sometimes. It's a great way to be able to go to market and download a website template and throw your information in there. But from my point of view, to be able to stand out and really own your uniqueness digitally as well, that it's more than just logos and fonts and colors. It's really an entire brand architecture experience, just like Yeti turned coolers into adventure and Tiffany turned jewelry into love stories. Like, that's what I try to do. I really look at these people as actual brands.
Well, I can see where just having an initial conversation with you, sharing like our origin story at Business RadioX, walking through some of what we do and why we believe it works, you would see things through that lens that you described, that you would be like, wow, you should really capitalize on that or really underscore that we don't see, right? You have that objective third party lens on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. And I didn't really know how to it was professionally packaged, I guess, at school and college, and then translated into the advertising agency framework. But as far as it being like a personality trait of mine and a gift of mine, I didn't really understand that is something I was doing for people my whole life. And that's some of the feedback I would get too from friends and family. It's like, oh, we come hang out with you and you always like fire us up and make us want to go do more with our life and go do this and go do that. And I'm like, yes, because I just see so much potential in people sometimes. And I'm able to see, and I have kind of this YOLO. I've always had this about life, just this YOLO outlook that we don't know how long we've got. So I kind of am like, never waste a moment, that all our moments are precious. That can be exhausting. And I get that. But, and I've had to work on that a little bit, but I also just see all of us as unique gifts and that we've been given very unique skill sets and gifts and passions that I have always just been able to look at and be like, now how can you go make money off that? How can you turn that into a business so that you never feel like you're working?
You've obviously invested so much energy and I'm sure resources in learning about the small business, the entrepreneurial person, the professional services, these folks that need and want to create that unique brand. But I get the sense that you genuinely feel, aside from your personal gifts that you were likely born with to a great degree, that having the corporate advertising experience does serve you and your clients well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because my very first mentor, Roy Spence, he was the S in GSD&M where I had my first job, and they still feel like family to me. He was carving out and trailblaze purpose-based branding when I was starting out my career there, and I loved it so much. And when he was telling a story about how Herb Kelleher hated that people couldn't go see their grandkids and fly across the country because it was expensive in the 70s to get an airplane ticket and fly. And so he was buddies with Roy, and he's like, I think I'm gonna start a discount airlines called Southwest Airlines, and you'll be my ad agency. And Roy's like, yeah. And then when they came to market him, Roy's belief system in advertising was that businesses can have purpose beyond just discount airline tickets. And so he translated that into freedom. He's like, they're in the freedom business. That's their purpose. And then that turned into a creative expression of you're now free to move about the country, and their tagline and the audio mnemonic. And so all of that training and when I got to see through that lens, I just loved it so much and just made so much sense to me from a soulful level too, because I did start seeing early on in my career too that I was taught all this creative skill set to win awards and to make my clients happy. But big picture, when I was working on Chili's, I was like, I'm just selling baby back ribs for a living, like the device that I have. And that's not terrible. There's nothing wrong with that. But just for someone that really felt that purpose connection to wanting to make sure whatever I was doing with my gifts made an impact beyond just like restaurant sales, So I really wanted to work with founders like that. And I was lucky enough to work in agencies that had businesses that already felt that way too. Those founders did. So I got to see how that advertising worked for those brands and what you could say creatively so that it made business sense and kind of purpose sense. And so most personal brands that are out there today have some type of mission or impact or transformation they want to give back to their people. And so that aligns perfectly with the kind of businesses I loved so much when I was in advertising.
So do you sometimes find, especially early in your consultation, your conversations, that you're up against, I don't know, misinformation, incomplete information, ill-conceived notions about branding that you have to kind of approach and attack with some education before you can really consult effectively?
Well, we do some of my calls are a little bit like I do a free dream catchers calls, what I call them. And that's also like, it's for me to catch your dreams, just like a little dream catcher in the window. I think they're technically supposed to like filter out bad juju, but I kind of have reinterpreted it to be like, well, it also catches your dreams. But it's also kind of a chem check as well to see if we align and believe the same kind of philosophy on branding, because it is subjective. And my style is very unique and creative as well. And so I'm probably not going to do a brand or a website that just looks good just to look good. You know, it's not just going to be well designed. It's going to be very conceptual because I'm a creative. And that's a different level of training. An ad agency, you have an art director and a copywriter, and those two work together to come up with You're Not You and You're Hungry, Snickers Satisfies, hilarious Betty White commercials and Brady Bunch commercials. You know, like the creatives are trying to come up. I don't know if you know what I'm referencing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing with these personal brands. And I explained that to them too. I was like, we're going to come up with your unique positioning, your unicorn factor, and then I'm going to interpret that. So for one of my clients who just helps women live their dream lives, honestly, that's what she does. She was an interior designer. And I was like, well, you actually design dream lives. And so you are kind of navigating them and you're guiding them. And so your logo should be this compass rose. She does a faith-driven service. And so inside the compass rose is a really small cross. And then because it's a visioning exercise that she takes them through, her entire design and her entire website is like this giant, beautiful vision board. And then her tagline is give your dreams their coordinates, so that it kind of all ties back together conceptually. And so, you know, if you are a brand that will wrap your arms around You're Not You and You're Hungry and take that through all your publicity and through your marketing and through your landing pages and your offers, and really stay true to, I help women give their dreams coordinates, if that's what she sticks to, then people will know her as like, oh, that's that woman that guides you. And so it becomes this sticky branding asset that is distinctive to you and only you.
So how does the whole sales and marketing thing work for you and your practice? I get the distinct idea that, A, you got to eat your own cooking, as we would say down here. But and that maybe a lot of your work, maybe you don't have to get out there and shake the trees like a lot of us, because maybe a lot of it's referral based. You know, there's nothing that sells like doing good work, right?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I just got this started about 6 months ago, and I have had 8 clients in this 6 months, and it's been great. And I have a few that want to start up in 2025. A lot of that is referral. I think too, my skill set too, like I did event branding as well, and like event production. I love throwing events and doing that. I think curating talent and the curation of the people I want to work with is also a skill set of mine. And so I will definitely have to probably end up doing funnels and sales and marketing, traditional stuff. But right now I've been curating people that I either meet, and I do my own biz dev myself, that I can say, you know, have you ever thought about becoming a personal brand? But right now it's been a lot of referrals from clients that like working with me. And so that's kind of the best thing that I could do. Like, I love that right now. And I only really want like 24 to 30 people a year right now, but I'm just getting started and I'm figuring it out. And I think having done entrepreneurial endeavors and been around some really successful ones, and a true entrepreneur just goes out and starts, you know, like just does it and tries it and validates their idea. And it's usually there's some kind of insecurity that this isn't going to be right, but they let the marketplace kind of help them pivot and polish it. And so that's what I've been doing with a lot of my clients too. And I've been very transparent with that and said, like, let's build this thing together. You're building you, I'm building me. We're learning along the way. And it's been great. I've loved it. All of my clients are amazing. And it's just been so fun.
You've mentioned a couple times already in this brief conversation, mentors. Say a little bit more about mentors, being mentored, your take on that, because I get the sense that it's had a real impact on you.
Thank you. Yes, it has actually. I wish I had known more about mentorship when I was younger. It's like everything I'm screaming at my teenage sons now and my college age son. I'm like, you're a sophomore in college. You've got to go find a mentor. Maybe some of them I got without even realizing it, like subconsciously, that it wasn't labeled that way. But I would say, yes, I had mentors in my job, the owners of the business, and they became mentors in that way. The ones you seek out, now that we have the ability to kind of find mentors anywhere, and they're a marketplace of mentors out there, I strongly, strongly advise it. It is the fastest way to get the knowledge you need to get. And there's so many niches and targets. And so finding out like, this is the direction I want to go. I want to do XYZ. And you can find those masterminds and those workshops and those webinars and those memberships. And so I just started doing this when I wanted to make this pivot last fall of 2023. And I just started investing in myself for the first time ever, really, in my career. And so I just got into it, and you just start asking a bunch of questions. And what's fun is everyone that's in a mentorship or a mastermind or a membership as well is in the same place as you a little bit, so they're different levels of business growth, but they're all wanting to learn and grow too. So you're around a lot of aspirational people that you end up forming your own business network off of. And so there's been a lot of that as well. There's like internal referrals and everyone kind of scratching each other's backs or using each other's services. So there's plenty out there. I've done a lot. You can do a lot of free mentoring on Instagram if you start following the right accounts, but I strongly believe in it and think that the investment is hugely beneficial. And then you end up getting expertise that you definitely got in a college setting. But for me, it's been a minute since I've been in college. But anywhere where you can just constantly be getting more knowledge about a topic that you want to have an expertise in, highly recommend.
Yeah, you spoke about bringing your unique lens to the relationship. I gotta believe that in the course of doing that, you must have to endure a great deal of trust and really do a pretty deep dive and get your client to just, share who they are and who they're trying to serve and all that kind of stuff. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I just actually had a kickoff call with my client today for this call actually. And it takes a little bit of time, and she was a referral and I don't know her that well. And so there is a little bit of a warming up time it takes, but it's also the questions. And I think better than anyone, there's a way to talk to people and have a conversation with people and prompt them in a way to get to those questions answered. But I think my process taking 8 to 10 weeks, which is on average about how long it takes, also helps because I get to know them. And I'm like, text me anytime. We'll text each other all day long. These are all very entrepreneurial people. So there's no hard stops. No, I'm off on the weekends. If I text them in the morning and they don't answer. So I do get to know them really well. In fact, I have a conference call today with one of my clients' wives. She wants to weigh in on some stuff. And so I was like, yeah, bring her in. All the opinions count. And then I also have to ask them questions. It's a lot of personal development too, that they have to kind of go deep on questions they hadn't thought of. And so we have to spend some time unpacking those a little bit because their lens of how they're seeing it is different than maybe how I'm seeing it. So sometimes it's like charades, if the thing you're trying to get someone to guess is brain and you're pointing to your head and they're saying hair, scalp, forehead, noggin, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's brain. I'm pointing to it, but it's not working. And you have to figure out a different way to get them to get to brain. That's how I look at this too. If I'm trying to get a certain answer or uncover something about these people, it's just, you come at it from a different angle. But some of it's my desire to find out, what do you want? That's why I call it a dream catcher. I'm like, this is a blank canvas. You can do anything and everything you want. And I will not be someone to tell you no. In fact, the one I just spoke to you, I was pushing back a little bit to say, why wouldn't we talk about that story? Is it not something you want to share? And she's like, well, I guess I never thought about it. I didn't see the value of it being actually an asset. So like sometimes it's just me pushing is what I threw at the lens I see and just seeing what they're comfortable with. And something too, in the products and services world, we had to create personas for inanimate objects or inanimate services. So like the Southwest Airlines I mentioned earlier, what was the persona of that? That a lot of it did come from its founder, but that advertising agency that I worked at had to kind of come up with, what is it going to feel like? What is the story of it? What's the tone and the personality of this brand? But with personal brands, it's already cooked. It's already baked in. And it's really cool because I don't have to do a bunch of work contriving something that I think the audience will love. I just have to creatively express this person authentically and uniquely to them. And then to me, the attraction and the magnetism. How do you say it?
Magnetism? I don't know.
Magnetism. Thank you. Magnetism will hopefully organically happen. And that kind of goes back to your earlier question about sales and marketing. If you have no audience, of course, you're going to need to invest some money in that stuff. But I also say, give it a second to marinate because brand is a long game. And if you stay consistent with it and you let people know about what you're doing and people have a great experience with you, ultimately, I think you would organically attract your ideal customer based off of those elements. But yes, I see the role of sales and marketing. It's just not my bucket I swim in.
I came across in my notes as I was reviewing this paperwork earlier this morning, this idea of ownable intellectual property. Can you share more about that? Maybe even share a use case. You don't have to name names or anything, but how that plays into this?
Well, essentially, all these distinctive brand assets are your intellectual property. Like, you get to own that. That is your unique visual and verbal identity, your taglines, all of that. So it becomes your own brand identity. It's not just pretty designs. Like, this was created custom for you. So the definition I would give to that is some intellectual property. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I don't want to go into any of that.
Right.
Don't take my word for it. But that's how I was seeing these assets through a business lens, have it being more than just, this is a nice to have. This is an investment in your business. And now you have some distinctive brand assets. The last company I was a chief brand officer of, we talked a lot about if one day you go to sell, and other founders that I know that have created sellable businesses. And a lot of the reason these companies wanted to buy them was because of the brand, and people love the brand so much. That's what I was trying to do at the last company I worked for. It's like, eventually you may want to sell this short-term rental vacation business. And so the name, the logos, the icons, the experience we have at the front door of every home that's unique to your brand, that's just uniquely you. So that becomes your intellectual property that you get to maybe sell one day. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. Well, I think I see it that way too now. So early in the conversation, you kind of zipped by it, but I got to ask about this podcast that you mentioned, 2025.
I know. I'm so excited.
Tell us about it.
I'm still working on the name. It's in my brain, but I have already some guests. I love this format so much. I know you've been doing it forever. So I know you must love it. And I can talk to you about it one day for sure. But I consume it, but I also love sitting down and having conversations with people like this. And so I just think being able to have a platform for other people to see impact makers and what they've done with their expertise and how they've become iconic for it is what I would love to do. I'd love to share those stories of these personal brand unicorns that stand out in their field for what it is they do. And so these would be people that have already achieved some level of success. And then I think also having my clients on is another great opportunity for them to amplify and talk about what they do, and then talk about the importance of personal brand and my version and my POV on it. And I just think it could be fun. And so it might be just the expert to icon diaries, secrets of personal brand unicorns.
I love it. Well,
working title.
I am so excited for you and really look forward to following your efforts on that. And I have no doubt that it will be wildly successful. So please keep us posted on that.
Definitely. You're going to have to come on too.
Oh, I'd love to. So I'm going to switch gears on you for just a moment, if I could. Passions, interests, pursuits, hobbies outside the scope of your branding work. Most of my listeners know that I like to hunt, fish, and travel. Anything else you nerd out about?
I love it. I know it's so sad that I nerd out over business stuff because it is what I've always loved talking about. It's like most of my friends all have run a business or own a business or doing something cool with their expertise. But, so much of my last 19 years actually of motherhood was that I loved being a mom. Not that I'm not still a mom, but I loved the role. I let my career take a little bit of a back seat, and I prioritized raising my boys and being at every game and every performance and on the PTA and doing all those things. And that was such a fun season of life for me. But I love nature. I love the outdoors. I've recently started getting up every hour and a half or so. When we wrap this, I'll probably go for a mile walk.
Yes.
And I've just taken these mile loops now. I've never thought of breaking up exercise into little 15 to 20 minute chunks. And I found myself walking 5 miles a day now, and I never probably would have done that because 5 miles would have felt so daunting in one. So I love being outdoors. I love the sun. I love nature. I love hanging out with my family. In 2021, both my parents got kidney cancer at the same time. And my mom had already been diagnosed with dementia earlier that year. So that was a lot of the reason I had to take a pivot a couple of years later, but I'm their caregiver. I'm actually over taking care of my mom right now. So that takes up a lot of time in my life. And I wouldn't say that it's a self-care or a hobby or something like that, but I do think I used to pick on myself a lot about not having those hobbies as much as you listed off, that I do as much. But I started realizing that my hobby is taking care of others and helping others and being a mom and being a caregiver. And that is something that really brings me joy. And so outside of work, that's what I do, or being outside in nature and hiking. I also am addicted to Zillow. Is that a hobby?
Yes, I think so. My wife was until we got in our new place.
Yes, I just love looking at real estate and saving my favorites and imagining I'd be there someday. So I love real estate. I love real estate. One day,
Well,
I'll
thanks
be
thanks for bringing them up. I'll send them an invoice. That's fantastic. I would love, before we wrap, if we could leave our listeners with a couple of branding pro tips. And look, gang, the number one pro tip is reach out and have a conversation with Lauren or somebody on her team. But to hold them over between now and then, Lauren, let's give them something to chew on.
Okay. Well, first of all, I say you are not a template. So you have a unique set of gifts that can't be templatized. So that's a pro tip. So just think about that of like, oh, I'm a custom design. Like I should be, and it's not just a custom design for me to make a sale. It really truly is a philosophy of like not templatizing yourself and just sticking with best practices and thinking about coloring outside the lines, like the soul of creativity, which is just my whole career. And then lead with transformation, not the transaction. Think about like, okay, what is the problem I solve? Let's talk about the problem I solve, not the product I'm selling. So what transformation am I giving my audience? And then also starting with your who. Who do you want to serve? Who is are the people that you want to help with this transformation? And so those are some of the tips I love talking about, is not being a template, transformation, your who, and then sharing your unique gifts with the world. And then the income will come with the impact.
I am so glad that I asked. That sounds like marvelous counsel. All right, what's the best way to connect with you, tap into your work, website, whatever, LinkedIn? Let's give them some coordinates.
That's perfect. Well, you can find me at my name at Lauren Bayne. It's B as in boy, AYNE. So laurenbayne.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn under Lauren Bayne. And then on Instagram, I'm Hey Lauren Bayne. And I'd love to talk to anybody. So I would love your audience to schedule a free dream catcher call with me. It's 30 minutes. There's nothing. I'm not going to sell you on anything. I just want to talk and see if you're a fit for personal branding, if you're a fit for me, if I can give you resources. I truly, truly am in this for giving people that same level of like what you hear in my voice and passion to get out there in the world and to seize the day with their skills and figure out a way to turn their expertise into an iconic brand and make some money doing it if that's the goal they're trying to attain.
Well, Lauren, it has been an absolute delight having you on the broadcast. Thank you for your insight, your perspective, your enthusiasm. You're a breath of fresh air, and you're obviously doing so much great work for so many. We sure appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Mine too. All right, until next time, this is Stone Payton for our guest today, Lauren Bayne, and everyone here at the Business RadioX family saying we'll see you in the fast lane.